Hello and welcome everyone. I'm your host Stefan Burns. We are having some significant energetic shifts unfolding at this moment in time, and the larger trend is what I call Earth electrification. We're just seeing what seems to be the Earth becoming more energetically active and alive, and there being more plasma phenomena across the Earth. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about Earth electrification. And we're also going to talk about some of the recent developments that have occurred here on Earth and in our solar system. We just had some massive coronal mass ejections launched from the sun, as we can see right here. We also are in the midst of a solar storm impact at this moment in time. And just earlier this morning, NASA astronaut Nichole Ayers captured this incredible photo of a gigantic jet, which is a massive plasma discharge from the lower atmosphere up to the ionosphere. And this is probably the best photo that we've ever taken of a gigantic jet thus far. They are extremely fast, transient, luminous, energetic events. So they last less than a second. Ultra fast discharge, traveling 7, 10, 15 kilometers per second. So 3, 5, 8 miles per hour. Very, very fast. Discharge up to the ionosphere, and that's it. And the reason why I'm reporting on this is because not only is this an incredible photo, like if you just look at this, that is absolutely insane. Here you see your thundercloud down below. This is taken on the border of the United States and Mexico, so around Texas, around like the southwest part of Texas. That's the best estimate. We see our thunder cell there. These build up massive electromagnetic potentials. A thunderstorm can have an electromagnetic potential of up to like 100 million volts. So the plug in your wall, in the United States at least, is 120 volts. In Europe, it's 220, okay? This is talking 50 to 100 million volts of electric field potential in a thunderstorm. The ionosphere up above, we actually see some of this air glow in this photo taken from the International Space Station. That typically has what's known as an equipotential, so an equal potential of about 250,000 volts or 250 kV. So going from a kilovolt to a megavolt is a 1000x jump. So we're talking 250 kV. And then this thunderstorm here, if it had this sort of gigantic jet, we could probably safely assume that it had a electric potential of 100 MV. So really, really strong. This then discharges plasma up to the ionosphere, connecting the two really strongly with that very powerful electric current for a brief moment. But what this really clearly shows us is the connection that the Earth has to all parts of its energetic body, going all the way out to the edge of its magnetosphere, the magnetopause, where the solar wind hits it, which is right now where we're receiving this energy from the sun due to the solar storm impact, down all the way to the crust and to the core. No parts of the Earth are disconnected from each other energetically. A very simple way to prove that is just to look at the magnetic field of the Earth, which is generated in the core and then propagates all the way out to outer space and connects to the sun. So that right there shows you that there is an energetic field going all the way from the deepest part of our planet to the outermost part. Here, let's look at these energetic perturbations really quick so we get just a sense of this solar storm impact. We are not at a G1 storm yet, but we may get there because these magnetic field perturbations have gone up. We're looking at a model here for the entire globe. This is our geospace delta B. B stands for magnetic field, delta is the change, and this runs for about 3 hours here. So we're looking at the most recent 3 hours of data. And this storm is strengthening at this moment in time. So when you get these sort of energetic perturbations in the magnetic field, because that's connecting the core all the way to outer space, you can then expect greater energy volatility everywhere else in that Earth energy system, going from the troposphere, actually going from the crust where you have earthquakes and some sort of some volcanic stuff like magma chambers and more. So going from the crust to the troposphere where we live, the lower atmosphere, very dense but electrically active with thunderstorms. out to the ionosphere, the plasma shell that surrounds our planet, the radiation belts, even more highly charged plasma and at a much higher percentage. The ionosphere is only about 1% plasma. The radiation belts are pure plasma. Very dangerous particles. If you're to be out there floating in space, would not be good for you. Out all the way to the edge of the magnetic field into the solar wind. Everything is connected together. And so I think that public awareness is starting to catch on. Everyone that watches the channel here basically gets that. So thank you everyone for being part of this channel, helping it grow. I'm your host, Stefan Burns. If you're new here, welcome. We cover what's happening on the Earth energetically almost every single day. We look at what's these geologic events. Right now we have earthquake swarms popping off near Japan and also Indonesia. So the Earth is basically saying, hey, we got some areas of activity we could go. They're both right next to the historic, most recent magnitude 9+ earthquakes that we've had in the 21st century. In 2011 for Japan, the 9.1, in 2004, the magnitude 9.0 Sumatra. So basically right now we have the solar storm impact. We have these earthquake swarms that are kind of like, we're ready to go, but we'll see. We have these crazy new coronal mass ejections that blasted out to Saturn and Neptune, which have been hit now by a few of these coronal mass ejections. It seems that the sun is launching specifically towards those two planets, which are about to meet in a historic conjunction, which is very, very powerful. We have the background planetary geometries are really insane right now. We'll look at that. We're in solar cycle 25 maximum, so we've been receiving a lot of energy from the sun. Just in general, there's a lot happening. The Earth seems to be electrifying rapidly. All our human activities that we've done, for example, all the wireless technologies, so radio frequency, that is just normal radio waves, AM, FM, all the first responder and military frequencies, which is a huge swath of that radio frequency spectrum. Then, of course, you have cellular frequencies, 1G, 2G, 3G, 4G, especially 5G really gets absorbed by water. We've released a lot of new water into our atmosphere as a result of the combustion of natural gas and oil and all those sort of petroleum products. Because when you burn a hydrocarbon, you get carbon dioxide and water. So you're taking water and sunlight energy that's been sequestered and releasing that into the Earth energy system. That's a huge driver of Earth electrification. And then the biggest driver of all, the sun still pumping out energy and actually pumping out more energy than was expected with solar cycle 25 maximum. So that was also a new impulse of energy. We've been having 300 years of increasing light energy from the sun due to what's known as the modern maximum. The last solar minimum was around the beginning of the 1800s with the Dalton minimum. It wasn't that much of a minimum, but we still had it. The Maunder minimum back in like 1650 or so, around that time zone, where global temperatures cooled off. That was the last significant solar minimum or grand solar minimum. So we see when we have these reductions in solar activity like grand solar minimums, we get reductions in the climatic conditions here on Earth. Things get colder. Well, we've been having this modern maximum. Things are getting hotter, more heat, latent heat. And so all that drives Earth electrification. We see things like this. The more we get photos like this showing these natural phenomenon, showing just very visually the connection that the Earth has to all of its energetic layers, the more people just get it. And it's not necessarily then this big debate, people thinking you're nuts. No, like if you just tap into the Earth, she'll reveal her secrets to you. This really nicely demonstrates that connection that we have. But the magnetic field is the primary connecting agent between all of them. And it seems these things are getting stronger. So we're going to talk about that in today's video. So let us look at this most recent plasma explosion on the sun. It's really quite wild. And it's actually this video here. So here we have our 304 angstrom view of the sun from the GOES satellite at 5.6 Earth radii. We're looking at that one and not our SDO satellite, which is a little bit cleaner and crisper, because this one allows us to see a wider field of view. So it's a little bit more zoomed out. But notice right here, we get this massive coronal mass ejection launch, and you'll also see it over here on this side with this one. So we get this double blast of plasma out to the west solar coordinate system and also to the east solar coordinate system early today, June 3rd, Universal Time. So that was really quite incredible to see. You can see after that, not much activity on the sun. We do have some other plasma filament structures on the sun. Let me pull up our solar system scope, which allows us to see planetary geometry, so you can see exactly where these are launching, because that's actually really interesting. We are still in this planetary geometry, starting to break apart now that we're approaching some other planetary geometry over the rest of the year because of this historic conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. It's going to keep things going. So here we have our solar system scope. It's an application. You can download this for yourself online. Highly recommend it if you want to zoom through and like really study this. It's really quite incredible. And so this is the planetary geometry we have right now. Here's the Earth. There's the Sun. We are just now finishing up our Jupiter Cazimi window, you could say. We'll look at that. But here we see the Earth roughly opposite Jupiter, but the Earth is moving faster in its orbit. Jupiter is moving this way, of course. But we see this alignment here starting to break up, but just a couple days ago, perfect alignment between Mars, Mercury, Venus, Ceres in the asteroid belt, then also Saturn and Neptune. We also just had a new comet we discovered flying into the solar system, so we'll talk about that as well. But if we go back just a few days here, we see this alignment really click into place right about here. Maybe even like a little further, maybe around June 29th, June 30th. All of them in alignment like this, just slightly offset from the center of the sun. But of course today, let's just go to our actual time right now, that alignment is starting to break as Venus is rotating ahead in her orbit. But you'll notice Saturn and Neptune there very close together. And as I go forward, you'll see them get really close together right here. And they make their great conjunction, I guess, with the sun around December. Right around December, we can see that they form this alignment heliocentric. And then we see their conjunction with the Earth right around the end of February. So this is the geocentric conjunction right there. Boom, boom, boom. But if we go back to this month, July, probably the craziest month energetically for 2025, if you go by the astrological forecast, we see that they are getting really close to a great conjunction right here. They get within 13 arc minutes of each other. See that? Super, super close together. So right now, as it relates to planetary geometry and the effect that has on the sun, that's really gravitationally based. Some electromagnetic stuff, but don't forget gravity. It's important, more important than a lot of people think. It seems that the sun likes to activate these points. We see it time and time again. And so we've been having tons of plasma launched from the western limb of the sun out towards Saturn and Neptune, which I find very interesting, all in advance of this great conjunction that almost goes exact this July, goes exact next year. It takes time for this stuff to go out. This solar storm impact from the sun to Earth took like 4 days or so to reach us. Well, we're at 1 astronomical unit. Saturn's at 10, Neptune's at 30. So you can think of the time it takes to reach them. So we're going to be having these waves of plasma go out and activate our friends there for quite a long time. Let me show you this Jupiter Cazimi sequence, which also shows these plasma explosions, okay? And let's see how fast this is set to play. Yeah, it's about the right speed. So let me zoom this up here. Maybe it's a little fast. I'll slow it down for you guys. It's maybe probably a little too fast. So we'll see how 50% looks. Yeah, it's a little better. So here we have our chronograph view, C2 and C3. The blue one's the C3 chronograph, wider field of view, 32 solar radii across. That bright point of light there is Jupiter. And that shows the moment it would Cazimi when it was exactly conjunct the sun, which is denoted by that grid circle there in the center. And watch how right as it emerges, the sun starts blasting out these shock waves, and see all these ones shooting off towards Jupiter right there. So we've actually been having a lot of coronal mass ejections launch off this direction since this Jupiter Cazimi sequence started. It seems that when we get these alignments, significant stuff happens on the sun. And so Jupiter is the strongest magnetic field in our solar system outside the sun. It's at 5 astronomical units away. So it's not that far away compared to Neptune at 30, right? Compared to the trans-Newtonian objects even further out. Neptune is effectively right in there. And it actually works with all the inner planets in terms of their orbital cycles, creating these planetary resonances, these alignments. And you can consider that a grand symphony of effect on the sun in terms of solar activity, causing these solar tides, which then affects the overall rhythms of solar activity. Ton of research on that. I'm going to be reporting on that more soon. But effectively, the first 5 astronomical units has a really strong impact on the sun because it's close to the sun. The planets further out still affect the sun, but in a lesser kind of longer term degree. Well, Earth is at 1 astronomical unit, okay? So we're really close. And we have a strong magnetic field. Venus doesn't have one. Mercury's magnetic field is 1/100th the strength of Earth's. Mars doesn't have a magnetic field. And so as it relates to the magnetic field of the solar system of the sun, you have the sun, and then you have Mercury really close, but 100 times weaker than Earth's. Then you go out to 1 AU and you have Earth's magnetic field. It's big, it's strong. You go out to 5, you have Jupiter, way stronger, but also further out. So Earth and Jupiter, at least electromagnetically, are big players. Now, gravitationally, Venus is a bigger player because she's about the same mass as the Earth, but she is closer into the sun. So she has more profound effects on the sun gravitationally than the Earth does. But the Earth is still no lightweight gravitationally because of how close we are. But electromagnetically, it's Earth and Jupiter. So you put basically the sun in between Earth and Jupiter like this, right? And then we start to see all this plasma blast off to the side, right, going towards Saturn and Neptune. And also some of them, though less, as you'll notice, going towards Mercury and Mars, which are off of the eastern limb. So I think that's really interesting that we see this alignment between the planetary geometry and the type of energy that's being spit out from the sun. And this is all in advance of this historic conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, which is really going to, it looks like it's really going to shake things up. So crazy stuff. I have quite a few things to go through here as it relates to Earth electrification. Let's go through some of our real-time data though. And that involves us going back and checking out this solar storm impact. So here we have our real-time solar wind. This is provided by the Discover satellite at the L1 Lagrange point. 1% of the distance from the Earth to the sun. First off, you'll notice we're not in a geomagnetic storm. We're not at that G1 threshold. But we have had an increase in geomagnetic volatility. Let's actually go to our 3-day view so you can see what it looked like with this ramp up. It's been slow, but you do see that we've had this increase in geomagnetic volatility. We're looking at our KP index here. It goes from 0 to 9. Once you're at 5, you're at a G1 storm. So we're not at 5, okay? Here we have some different parameters of the plasma of the solar wind. This is temperature, this is velocity, measured in kilometers per second. This is density, and this is measured as like 1 particle per cubic centimeter. So if it's 20, that means it's 20 particles per cubic centimeter. Then we have our solar wind magnetic field configuration, which is like either away or towards the sun. And then we have our interplanetary magnetic field. The black line is the total field strength. We can see this coronal mass ejection impact came in yesterday. We were hoping for Aurora last night in North America, but we did not get it because basically, as we can see, this went northward. The red line is the southward component, the BZ component. If it's really up in this category there, northward positive, it doesn't connect to Earth's magnetic field. You'll notice though that it has now swapped down to southward, and our field strength's at about 10 or so. That's double the normal field. So it's not the strongest impact. We never thought it was going to be a strong impact. We were only estimating like a G1 from this, if that. But we are in a configuration to allow more of this energy to come into the planet. So I don't find it at all a coincidence. I've talked about this a lot on the channel. I have not at all found it a coincidence when we get a geomagnetic storm, like a solar storm impact, we start to get that magnetic field shaking, that energy perturbation to increase, ions precipitating down from the radiation belts charging up the ionosphere. Also, all the solar particles going into the ionosphere. When that happens, we seem to see tropospheric weather systems just become enhanced or more volatile. So we had an alert for weather here in Vermont. Right now I'm visiting Eileen McCusick with biofield tuning. We're going to have a really special program for you tomorrow night in terms of doing a group coherence tuning and then also an earth tuning. So make sure you subscribe and set the notifications, turn that on. It's going to be very powerful. She actually may even jump in a little bit on this live stream just to wave and say hello. She's on a video call right now. But we had a alert here for the weather that there was going to be a little bit of thunderstorm activity. Well, when it passed through, it was like so fast, so sudden. The trees were going nuts. The rain was like sheets of rain going sideways, and then it was literally over in seconds. But that occurred right as this flipped southward and that solar wind connected to Earth. And so you have that kind of sudden transient enhancification of that global electric circuit. If you already have a thunder cell, again, that has like maybe 50, 100 megavolts of potential, that will create a very strong current through the atmosphere going up to the ionosphere. And most of the resistance of the atmosphere is in the boundary layer, the top 2 kilometers. So like let's just call it 1 mile, right? 1.2 miles, something like that. You have most resistance there. Once you get up to like 5-10 kilometers above the surface, the resistance goes down quite a lot. So you can have a fairly good flow of energy. Well, a thundercloud is pretty high up, right? So you have these sort of things happen. So as we have all these factors aligned, these historic planetary resonances, solar cycle 25 maximum, the fact that we've actually been in a grand modern maximum, all the electromagnetic radiation of humans from cellular. Now we have Starlink satellites. I've been talking about that. They beam down radio frequencies, and then the satellites themselves are made out of metal. When they ablate into the atmosphere, they spread metallic dust everywhere. A lot of people think there's a whole bunch of geoengineering and stratospheric aerosol injection going on. You can do your own research into that. I'm not going to really discuss it too much on the channel because I haven't found any good singular concrete information on that. There's so many competing ideas as to how they're doing it, all that stuff. So yeah, so regardless, there's a lot happening with the Earth energetically at this time, both natural and man-made stuff. And that is all basically leading to this Earth electrification. And this solar storm is like the cherry on top right now, you could say. Though it's not a big one, but we see that here our magnetic field has been getting more volatile, but it hasn't been that big of an impact yet. As you can see, here's our HP30 index for the past 10 days. We had this bigger impact there, though still only basically going to a G1 level, and then we've just been slowly increasing. So not that much, but still something is more than nothing. And right now it's kind of significant because of this July 5th thing and the earthquake swarms and such. Let's actually look at our USGS latest earthquakes, because I have been looking at the earthquakes, but maybe something's just happened. I know that there's been a lot of these swarms from Japan. So let's give this a look. This is an earthquake map provided by USGS. Sometimes they don't list earthquakes. So there's maybe some funny business going on at times, but regardless, it's a pretty good resource. Here we have just for the past day, as you see, magnitude 2.5 for the past day. And these are earthquakes that have made it on the map for this swarm here, which I talked about in yesterday's video. Magnitude 5.5, 5.1, 5.0. So that's a big earthquake, magnitude 5.5. This swarm has really been going on for a while now. It's probably about 1,000 earthquakes or more. And the cumulative magnitude on this is about probably a 6.2, 6.3 at this moment in time, probably about 6.2. And there's this prediction, this prophecy from multiple people that there's going to be some large volcano-seismic event here around July 5th, or just in general July 2025. So, we have all these factors lined up. Does it mean it's going to happen? No. That's really dependent on how we approach the situation and our collective vision that we want to unfurl. But we are having Earth electrification. That seems to be a very clear trend. Unless we stop certain things, that's not going to basically abate unless some other large external influence comes in and shuts that down. And let's say an ice age all of a sudden gets triggered. That could put maybe an end to Earth electrification if all of a sudden the temperature of the Earth just really dropped down. So this earthquake swarm in Japan is still going on. The other one is here off the coast of the Nicobar Islands right here. Just one earthquake on the USGS map for today. But if I go to the past 7 days, we'll see more of them. And let me put this on universal time here. But again, the USGS map isn't showing everything. They only show the larger events, typically. You can set this to show 0+, but it requires, generally you'll get the best earthquake information from the local seismic observatory network. But if you're concerned about global trends and rhythms, generally this USGS map is sufficient. But you see a whole bunch of magnitude 5s there, right? 5.1, 5.0, 5.0, 4.9. So quite a lot with this earthquake swarm 2 there, which is fairly close to where the earthquake occurred in 2004 with that magnitude 9. And then this one is occurring near Japan, which is the site of the magnitude 9.1 in 2011. So we have two swarms basically saying, hey, we got activity. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they are close to locations of the most recent historic magnitude 9s, 2004, 2011. So basically everything's locked and loaded. We could get something, we could not get something. We'll just have to wait and see. But certainly I've been feeling, the energies have been wild. I've been feeling big shifts unfolding. And one of the biggest ones, which I meant to mention earlier in the video, but we can talk about it now, is the shift of Uranus into Gemini. This is like a huge energetic shift coming up on July 7th, which is driving a lot of this process. So Uranus is the planet of storms and chaos and sudden changes and connected to earthquakes and electricity, technology, and it is moving into Gemini, an air element, on July 7th. Now it will go back to Taurus at the end of the year with a very small retrograde, and then it goes fully into Gemini in either the very end of 2025, I think it's actually more like 2026. It will also shift permanently into Gemini. This is all Western tropical astrology, okay? So we're basing this off of specific degree angles in the local reference frame of the solar system, and those initial points are guided by the location of the equinox and solstices. So that's the idea with that. And we've been tracking events and connecting them to alignments with the planets and cosmos with Western tropical for a very long time. And so that's how that system kind of works. So we're looking at what specific degree points seem to connect to certain changes and trends, both with human civilization and with like global phenomena and Earth phenomena and more. So the thing I want to share with you about Uranus shifting into Gemini, and just in general with these outer planets changing signs, is that it seems, based off of the study of the mundane astrology, which connects world events to the planets, right? It seems that when a planet shifts signs, it has gone through the entire sign. It has accumulated all those energy. It's now its fullest expression of that energy. And it will often release that energy and then start to take on the new energy. And so on July 7th, we will have Uranus, with some window around that, do some sort of release of Earth element to pick up air element. So I'm expecting there to be, based on the astrology, I'm expecting there to be some sort of atmospheric and Earth disturbance of some sort. And it may not actually be like Earth related, just elementally, we're going to see, I think we're going to see some sort of Earth element and air element disturbance. I think it's very likely that's geologic or geophysical in nature, but that's not necessarily guaranteed, of course. But if Uranus moving through Taurus then releases a lot of that energy, there's a lot baked into that. We've had a lot of geomagnetic storms with it in Taurus. It's been there for 7 years. Uranus takes 7 years to shift. So it's built up a good amount of energy. We had that historic G5 storm in 2024 with Uranus and Taurus just having passed. Basically, just having done its Cazimi. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just did its Cazimi. Right, basically around the same time. All the ramp up of solar cycle 25 maximum, a lot of other Earth disturbances. So it's kind of built up the energy of all that Earth electrification is really amplified with Uranus and Taurus because, like, for example, 5G came out around 2019, 2020. That's all Uranus and Taurus because this goes back to like 2018. Then as it shifts into Gemini, there'll be perhaps some release of Earth energy, and I think that's going to be connected to air energy as well, because we also just had Jupiter shift out of Gemini. It was only there for a year, but it did a shift. It's kind of preconditioned it, you could say. And now Uranus, the planet of sudden changes and electricity, storms, earthquakes, it's moving in. So there, I think we can expect a shakeup. And then if you apply that also to Neptune, Saturn, they've just moved into Aries, the very beginning. And they're doing that near exact conjunction this July. And then we're going to be moving back over that Pisces and Aries point. So there's some really strong connections there. And they're doing their release of Piscean energy. And there's also been this new birth of Aries energy, as we've been seeing with volcanic activity, with wildfires. We've been discussing that on channels. If you'd like to stay up to date on what's happening with the Earth in a way that actually matters, right? The news stations, they go like this, blah, 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 and they tell you about who's been murdered or something like that, just to keep you in a state of like anxiety and fear, and your central nervous system just needs to breathe. It's like so tired. But what actually matters is like, what's the Earth doing, and am I going to be affected here at my home? Something like that. That's at least what I think. If there's anything to be aware of and to be prepared for, it's Earth events. They're infrequent, thankfully, and often, let's say like in Florida, they have hurricanes all the time. A hurricane passes over. Usually things are fine, not always, but you hope that everything's fine and you can get through it. But those are the things to actually be mindful of, prepared for. And as Earth continues to electrify, it's going to become more and more of a storm world. If we discuss, I think actually, yeah, here we go. So if we discuss the solar system, Jupiter is a storm planet. And it is the most significant planet in our solar system, basically. Because it's at 5 astronomical units, as I mentioned earlier. So it's able to have all these planetary resonances with the inner planets and have that be significant. But at the same time, it is also the planet that is furthest out and therefore close to the outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, which are more massive than all the inner planets. So Jupiter occupies this spot in the middle where effectively it can be like a conductor of everything. Now, of course, the sun is the big influence, right? If you don't go outside and give thanks to the sun every day, you're doing something wrong, because the sun wants you to give it a little bit of thanks and blessing every single day, because without the sun, we'd all be gone. Earth would be cold, dark, dead, lifeless, and the sun could set us back to that if it wanted to. So make sure you go outside every day, be like Father Sun or Mother Sun, whatever you want to say, right? Thank you so much for the light. I see you. That's a good thing to do. Just my recommendation. Do whatever resonates with you. Follow your own heart and advice, but I certainly do that anytime I can. And I think that in general keeps things happy here on Earth. But Jupiter is the big other heavyweight with the sun, both electromagnetically and also gravitationally. And Jupiter is a storm world. And so I look at the solar system from like a consciousness perspective, and we see Earth in the inner solar system being the most massive, having its own moon of quite some size, right? Jupiter and Saturn both have a ton of moons, same with the outer planets. Earth's like, yo, I got a big moon too, right? Like I'm in the club as well. It's super close. It gets a lot of light radiation from the sun, more than Jupiter. Our radiance is about 1,362 watts per square meter. That's really high, less than Venus or Mercury, but still very high compared to Jupiter, the outer planets. We get a ton of that solar energy. We have the global electric circuit, the strong magnetic field to become a storm planet. We've been a storm planet. There are big storms on Earth. I think Earth herself wants to be a bigger heavyweight in the solar system. And so she's going to take up more of that storm energy. This is just what I feel, what my intuition is telling me. And so that's what I think the direction of the planet's going. I don't think that necessarily means that we can't be at peace and live peacefully here on Earth, but I do think it means that we need to be more respectful of the power of our Mother Earth, Gaia. And when you see something happening, get ready, like be prepared, and perhaps even get ready to leave, and then come back as necessary. I think as we have more and more of these air element energies. I think that's going to be really important because we have these conjunctions between Pluto and Neptune occurring in Gemini. That's like already been happening since I think what 1392 or something like that. Like 500 plus years now. We've been having these conjunctions between Neptune and Pluto in Gemini. We just had the great mutation in Aquarius, which is Earth element, between Jupiter and Saturn on winter solstice 2020. That's a 150-year plus cycle of them meeting up in Earth element. We are having Jupiter was just in Gemini, Uranus moving into Gemini, Pluto will be in Aquarius for 20 years. There's a lot happening in the Earth element, and Earth is very mutable, and it can quickly have these winds pop up, like this thunderstorm I experienced today. Is like, boom, all of a sudden the trees are going nuts, but they can also be over really quick. So you have to be mobile, you have to be the air element yourself. So we're going to have that shift with Uranus into Gemini. Next 7 years, I think, are going to be really some powerful atmospheric events. And it's going to, I think, behoove everyone to have a little bit more mobility themselves and flexibility with where they are at any given time, and to listen to the Earth. So yeah, a lot of crazy stuff. Let me show you another planetary geometry that we have coming up on August 9th. And this is pretty wild. This is a kite formation, very, very precise. You don't see things like this every day. So we have, this is a geocentric one, but we have Earth there, Saturn and Neptune are making up one end of the kite. And here we have Mars. Or is also the peace sign, all right? So this is the peace sign. It's really cool. These are in opposition. Mars, Earth in the middle, Saturn and Neptune on the other side. If you zoom out, you can actually see it pretty nice. Let me turn myself off really quick. Just watch my cursor. Here you see Uranus, and there you see Pluto. They are both within 1 degree sextile of this arrangement here, which is very precise for, in general, with these sort of geometries and with astrology, the archetypal study of planetary geometry and resonances. The closer the orb, the stronger the effect. And so you have this historic kite configuration. These are only 1 degree off from that kite. And if we go by Western Tropical, it's really interesting. You have Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And then Mars is in Libra, which is its fall position. Mars is a war planet. It doesn't like to be in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, and it's the planet of peace. Libra is the sign of judgment, but it's in a fall position. And at the same time, they have Mars in its fall, Saturn's in its fall in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. So fallen Mars is ruling fallen Saturn and Neptune, and Saturn is exalted in Libra. So there is this kind of back and forth there. But it's literally the peace sign being shown in our solar system. Like, it's a little difficult to, let me zoom out here. If you look at it on the chart, and let me get Mars, my cursor on Mars, okay? So this is where, my cursor is where Mars is, okay? Because again, it's in our solar system. But you literally have the peace sign being made in the solar system. Or you flip this around and you can see that even better like this. Let me zoom out again. Right, and again, my cursor is right where Mars is. That's the peace sign, folks. And so you have the Mars, the war planet, in the sign of peace and compromise and relationship. You have Saturn in Aries, the sign of war, but exerting this grounding influence. It itself is fallen. And then you have Neptune there as well, perhaps dissolving away warlike tendency, because Neptune's a planet of dissolution. And then you have Uranus and Pluto applying these mental air-based sextiles to these points, and also in trine to each other. So really incredible stuff. And then, of course, also trine to Mars. So this is an incredible configuration we have coming up 1 day after the Lionsgate portal. And if we want to manifest anything, here's what I would say. There's a lot of things that people want to manifest. They want to manifest maybe a relationship, maybe more wealth for themselves because they want better security. Maybe they want to manifest being a personality online or for fame or whatever, right? These are all individual manifestations. We should really be looking at how we can manifest things collectively together for the betterment of everybody. That's what I believe. And choosing those very intentfully. Well, world peace is basically what we need. As humans, we really need to move beyond what we've been doing, committing warfare and dividing people and building polarization, turning family into enemies against each other. How many people watching this right now can raise your hand and say, yeah, the polarization that exists in this world has driven my family apart? I bet a lot of you, I bet a majority of you will be raising your hand right now, unfortunately. I know that I can raise my hand for that, unfortunately. We're doing our best, but certainly there's some big polarization in my family. I mean, 2020 really brought that up, as all of you know. So these forces that seek to divide us will continue to seek to divide us, and we have to apply consciousness to that at an orthogonal angle and just completely break that duality and that polarity and just completely enter into a new timeline. And this is a configuration that the universe is giving us. These energies, this specific cymatic resonance of energy can allow for that. And we just had 2 nova explosions pop off, V462 Lupi, V572 Velorum, huge influxes of energy from interstellar sources, feeding all of this, also driving Earth electrification even further. And we have a new interstellar visitor also that is going to be swinging in. It's already in the solar system at about 4 something astronomical units, but swinging in even closer. This is C2025 N1 Atlas. We see its location right now. It's an interstellar. It's like the 3rd ever interstellar visitor found for our solar system. Very, very faint. You can barely make it out on the photograph. You can't get it with your own camera or telescope. Unless you have a great telescope. But this was just discovered yesterday, I believe. And if we go forward in time, we can watch it here, zoom in. I'm actually going to go forward by month at this point. We see it goes within the orbit of Mars, okay? And gets close to Earth, though Earth's orbit at least, doesn't really get close. It gets close to Venus, in fact. If you look here, that's a fairly close alignment to Venus, which is interesting. I don't know how, there we go. So it gets fairly close to Venus. That's cool. But Earth will be basically on the other side during this interstellar visitor's perihelion. But these sort of objects bring in that cosmic information. They are, comets have a bunch of plasma to them. That's why they have these long filamentary tails, right? They are cold, but that doesn't mean you can't have plasma. You can have cold plasma. You can also have hot plasma right nearby. You have these compartments of plasma that can form due to unique properties of plasma, the fourth state of matter. So the last comet that we saw, the most significant one, Shuchen-Shan, flying in really close to the sun, that caused the sun to blast off a bunch of solar flares. And then we got a G4 storm out of that, October 10th. Some of you may recall that video, or that event in general, and the videos I made discussing that. So this is another new factor added on top of all of this, all right? This is November that we're seeing it get it's close to its perihelion. But let's go back to August and go to the 9th just to see kind of where it's connecting to with this configuration, which we can actually see here in the sky live. And it is outside of that, but actually fairly close. Look at this. Fairly close to an alignment with Pluto from at least the perspective of Mars. So also getting, it looks like, a little bit of an energy connection from that comet as a result, because it has its own electromagnetic field, and it is going to build a stronger flow of energy between those two, theoretically. How significant, that's hard to say, but you got to look at this stuff simple sometimes. So a lot of really profound stuff happening at this moment in time. Here we have, I want to show you this. We're going to go through some other stuff really quick. Here is this graphic showing solar radial flux and superbolts going from 2010 to 2018. So Earth electrification, basically. Superbolt, what is it? Massive lightning bolts. Super, super strong. They can be massive. This is like nearly 500 miles across. This is on April 29th, 2020. Okay. So this was, and then this data here is for solar cycle 24 maximum, which was a fairly weak solar cycle. Our solar radial flux, our monthly count, never went over 180. Meanwhile, in this solar cycle, we've been over 200, 220, I think even 240. So we see that we did have this increase in solar energy from the sun. Look at how superbolt frequency goes up like crazy during solar maximum, okay? So here we have 0 during solar minimum, no super bolts. And then as you get closer and closer to solar max, which was really right around here, look at the timing. You get the most super bolts right on that peak of solar activity for solar cycle 25 as measured by 10.7 centimeter radial flux. Boom, now you're getting thousands of super bolts right around that time. These are intense lightning strikes, 10 to 1,000 times stronger than normal. So this is like greater than 10 to the 6 joules. And they often stretch out hundreds of kilometers, can take seconds to discharge. So imagine seeing a lightning bolt like literally just, and that's it. That's about 5 seconds. That's really crazy. So we're in solar cycle 25 right now. So these super bolts are more common right now. And solar cycle 25 is stronger than solar cycle 24. We can look at that data really quick. We do have the numbers that have come in. And so just to show you solar cycle 25 in comparison to 24, here it is. We have our solar cycle progression provided by NOAA. We'll zoom back to get 24 in here as well. And yeah, so this is solar cycle 25. This is 24. This is 25. Look at the difference. Let me get the numbering on too. Just had a big drop in the sunspot number, very similar to solar cycle 13. If you want to do that data analysis, I've been talking about that on the channel. I'm not going to repeat it this time. But now we're going back up. Sunspot numbers right now are about 150. But look at how many super bolts we had during this solar cycle. Well, we probably got more right now, right? If it's driven by solar activity to a large degree because of the enhanced ionosphere and the global electric circuit, well, we're going to get a lot of them. So we have this Earth electrification going on. That's not even accounting for 5G, which was not active during solar cycle 24. Remember that, right? We did not have 5G technology active during solar cycle 24. That is a new thing. Here we have Schumann resonances and sunspot numbers. Again, for solar cycle 24, we see the frequency of the foundational mode, the vertical electric field, is higher during and slightly after solar maximum as compared to solar minimum. This is solar cycle 23 back in the early 2000s. Look at how weak 24 was in comparison. This is more similar to our solar cycle here than solar cycle 24, though solar cycle 25 has been slightly weaker than solar cycle 23. But we're also just having stronger Schumann resonances at this moment in time. These are natural electromagnetic wavelengths of light that connect and overlap with our brainwave frequencies. They connect to our heart rhythms, especially like if you do a heart rate variability power spectral density analysis of basically your heartbeat rhythms. You notice these connections with Schumann resonances, also at geomagnetic storms. They are perhaps a collective information and energy network that the collective consciousness lives within. So there's a ton of data for that. You can look into the work of Michael Persinger if you want to learn more about that. He goes way in depth in some of his lectures and in his writing. That's really the resource to look into. But you know, the frequency is also higher right now because of solar cycle 25. So there's a lot of these Earth electrification factors occurring. I want to talk, and then also let's not forget, a lot of people talk about this online. I haven't showed this graphic yet. We have these NextRed towers all over the United States and Europe and other places for weather tracking, okay? Well, so all these radar installations. Well, this is all 2.7 to 3 gigahertz energy. These are microwave beams. And sometimes you get these blooming effects because of how it hits this inversion. You get ground clutter. And when you get these beams to hit like a cloud layer and we get this inversion, and it bounces back down, now you're effectively being microwaved. So we have this basically cooking the atmosphere in the lower part of the Earth energy system. Like this is all basically cooking energy into the troposphere. Some of this energy does go out. You have Starlink satellites from space beaming microwave radiation down to connect to those Starlink terminals to deliver internet to people who are watching this video right now. That is just what it does. And that is a very wide swath of energy. And so now with that said, here's the electric susceptibility of water. I've added in these colors in this text, okay? This graphic though is basically just from a textbook. Just a plain physics textbook showing the electric susceptibility of water going from 0.1 to 100 gigahertz. This was written back in like the 60s or 70s or 80s, so there wasn't any 5G back then. No one was thinking about this. We have our dielectric constant there going from 0 to 90. We have our frequency down below. logarithmic jumps, right? 10x right there, order of magnitude, boom, boom, boom. We see our different temperatures of water. So 0 degrees Celsius, 25, 50, 75. We see that the electric susceptibility is in general higher at higher water temperatures. It's more energetic already. It's more likely to grab these frequencies from just its environment. Well, we'll notice, and this is the human body temperature, around 37 degrees Celsius or 96 or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, right? We all know that around the world. So this is around the human body temperature, right in between these two curves effectively, right in between 25 and 50, just like this, right like that. Well, here's 4G. It goes up to about 1 gigahertz. You'll notice that the electric susceptibility hasn't really shifted yet. So you are absorbing some of this energy from 4G, 3G, 2G, 1G. You also have the power grid oscillating at 50 hertz in Europe, 60 hertz in the States, some other frequencies around that, harmonic frequencies. Well, the moment you get to 1 gigahertz, look at how everything shifts. And if you go up to like some of the frequencies they're using, 50 gigahertz, it's basically absorbed completely by water. It's literally how a microwave oven works. And not only are you getting rotation of water molecules as a result and generating heat, you're also getting non-thermal effects. There's a whole bunch of things that this does and how it's absorbed into the body and also trapped into the body. If we are anything, we are water, right? 99% of us by molecular count is water, 70% by mass. The key to health really is structuring your internal crystalline water body, because water has a dipole structure to it, has a positive charge, has a negative charge around the oxygen, the positive charge near the hydrogens. As a result, they form these connections to each other, hydrogen bonds, and they form these what are known as quantum coherency domains, but effectively just crystalline structures that resonate at specific frequencies, can grab and hold on to light energy. There's a whole bunch of people doing a lot of amazing research into water. Dr. Gerald Pollack, if you want someone that's more on the mystical side, Veda Austin, really good stuff. But if we're anything, we're really just a crystalline water light being walking around. And so the energy that you put into your body is key. And we see here that these frequencies get absorbed directly into your body at a very high rate. And so making sure you structure your own water body is very, very important. And so there's a variety of ways to do that, but really the power of the mind is key here. Also, just removing yourself from these sort of electromagnetically polluted environments is also key. So earthing, grounding, decharging your excess charge to the earth is really important. But I don't think this trend is going to go away anytime soon. There's a lot of health effects due to electrosmog. But it seems to be what the Earth is manifesting, and it's also driving this Earth electrification, therefore Earth evolution process. So you're going to have to work around that. Like, inform yourself as to some of the dangers and health effects of 5G, 4G, 5G, all that stuff. But that's the direction we're going. So it seems there's a purpose to that. Hopefully that in the long run manifests itself in a positive way. But as of right now, this is very serious stuff. But all these energies that we're pumping into outwards for our cell phones is being absorbed by the Earth more than us, right? Because we're not that frequent. You know, walking around a busy city, maybe has a lot of people. But in general, most of this is being absorbed into the lower atmosphere, into the troposphere, directly into the water molecules floating around us. Well, why do you think we're getting more storms? Right? It's a really simple equation. And then you also talk about all the heat energy being released from the use of all the fuels and gases and more, right? Just literally creating heat from the breakdown of sequestered solar light into available energy immediately. Well, yeah, Earth is becoming a storm world. And this is a big reason why. So that you can't really deny this stuff once you know, like once you recognize the basic physics of it, and here's the key, and you remove your programming. If you have been programmed by either fossil fuels are the only cause of climate change, or the other side, which a lot of people on this side don't want to recognize, oh, you want us to stop, you're going to tax our carbon because of cow farts. Those people, both are wrong. It's a complete system. You have the sun affecting the Earth, you have the planets affecting the Earth, you have the cosmos affecting the Earth, and you have humans affecting the Earth. All this, and you have the Earth affecting itself. So all these things are coming together, and it seems driving this Earth electrification process. So we're going to see more superbolts, more big storms, more, I think we're likely to see probably more solar activity, though you can't, what the next solar cycle, like solar cycle 26 will be, that's an unknown, but I think we're likely to see more and more solar activity as well in the 21st century. I don't think we have a grand solar minimum coming up, but I don't know, we could. We could have all of a sudden these solar rhythms to drop down to a minimum and help cool things off. Does my intuition tell me that's not going to be the case though? I think this stormification process for the Earth is going to continue because I think the solar system wants another Jupiter, effectively, right? It wants like a mini Jupiter close in. And the solar system as a whole, this is just me kind of going through my thoughts, all right? But the solar system as a whole is having to contend with other stars, okay? So if we zoom out, we see some other stars here. They are like, all the stars are working together. Most of the other stars are binary, or sometimes even 3-star systems, like there's 5, 6-star systems. It gets crazy. So the sun is the conductor of all the different planets, all of them moving through their orbits. They affect the sun gravitationally and create this gravitational field that's always shifting and moving, but the net angular change of all that at any given moment is always 0. It's perfectly balanced. It's perfectly balanced. And it seems that we get some pretty interesting planetary resonances around cosmic events, almost like the solar system is trying to grab that energy, like maybe the sun wants to grab some of the plasma from a supernova explosion in order to help recharge it, right? The sun is always blasting off plasma, right? It's got a lot happening, but I think the sun probably wants to evolve too. It's not content. People say the sun is middle-aged. Oh, it's just a middle-aged sun. It's this old. The sun is probably more juvenile, right? Saying, hey, like if I can get the food, I can grow effectively. What these nova explosions, when like a white dwarf moves into a bigger star, there are some dynamics, if you do the thought experiments on them, which are really quite fascinating and really indicate that the solar system and the universe in general is much more dynamic than our current model of understanding. And so I don't think the sun is middle-aged. I think it's more juvenile. And if it was to get the plasma, it's going to grow and evolve. And so it has its planets to help work with that, and having more of a storm world heavyweight in the inner solar system is going to behoove it, because the Earth then can be a plasma reservoir, which then feeds the sun eventually, right? It comes from outer space. Uranus and Neptune have these tilted magnetic fields which can bring it in from the ecliptic plane because they tilt out with their polar cusp. Maybe then, somehow it can get funneled by Saturn and Jupiter, which both have powerful magnetic fields. And then Jupiter maybe can sling it over to the Earth, which then can bring it over to the sun. So these are just ideas, speculations. This is the type of stuff that I think about, what's going on in my mind, where my mind has been. But I don't see any reason why that can't unfold. And I think if you were to zoom out with a God perspective and you could see 1,000,000 years of time, you'd be like, oh, of course, that's what's happening, right? It'd be very obvious. But we've been looking at this for, let's say, since 1950, since the space age. We've been having telescopes for longer than that, of course, and of course, visual observations for thousands and thousands of years. Our legends and myths support this, by the way, like the succession going from Uranus to Saturn to Jupiter, effectively, or rather Uranus to Kronos to Zeus, right? Effectively kind of supports this idea that the solar system is in constant evolution. It's not as static as we think it is. So I'll leave it there for the video. Thank you all so much for watching today. I'll keep you up to date every step of the way. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell for tomorrow's video, where Eileen McCusick and I are going to do a collective tuning of the biofield and also of the Earth. So that's going to be very, very powerful stuff leading up to July 5th. And if you're in the United States, I wish you a wonderful July 4th. This is Independence Day, and so that means exerting your independence, declaring your own personal declaration of independence is something that you can do, and I encourage you to do that with Pluto and Aquarius. The systems have all been corrupted. It's time for us to actually make that orthogonal change and go the direction that we need to as a humanity, as a society, as an Earth and a planet in this larger system of consciousness, because there are much bigger forces at play. These stars, rogue brown dwarfs, there's a lot of things happening that if we aren't in coherence and collectivized together, but still retaining our individual sovereignty and freedom, we are not going to make it. At least I don't think we're going to make it in all that great of a way. But the more orderly and coherent we are in a true soul purpose expression, where everyone's spiritually enlightened, that is the way. This is all just what I believe. So if you like the sound of that, if you resonate with that, then I hope to see you around on the channel. Thank you all so much. Wishing all of you well. Please say your prayers for Japan, because right now they seem to be in the firing line. May or may not have something happen there, but it's just everything, the conditions are there. Like the necessary energies, you could say, are there for something big to happen in and around Japan. So, you know, I hope you don't want that. But so say your prayers for Japan. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks so much. Take care.